apparently the American president has said openly towards the Iranians, not in any negotiating environment, that he will send another carrier battle group to the region, to the Middle East, to menace Iran. Now, for one thing, if Donald Trump is going to muller the Iranian nuclear program in its concrete bunkers and carved into the bedrock of mountains, he is going to need to do that with massive ordnance penetrators from B-2s based on Diego Garcia. The whole carrier battle group thing is useful theater. It signals a willingness of the United States to put air defense assets between Iran and targets, and to put a lot of attack aircraft into the region to attack targets in Iran. But really, that's not the meat of an attack force that's going to get rid of Iran's nuclear program. And the Iranians know that. And the Americans know that the Iranians know that. Trump has said that he will send another carrier battle group. You remember when he moved the Gerald Ford battle group from the Middle East to the Caribbean, where it's not especially useful, to menace Venezuela and maybe Cuba and maybe Colombia? It's still there. So if the United States Navy is going to send another aircraft carrier, they've got to send the one in Japan. They've got to send, I don't know, the one from Norfolk, which I think is being worked on. There's no other carrier battle group in the region, and taking the one from Japan and sending it off to the Middle East signals to China that now is a moment that they can take a good hard look at Taiwan, and that the United States can't maintain focus simultaneously on the Middle East and on the South China Sea. That's not a good idea. This suggests to me that Trump said, I'll send another carrier battle group without consulting. And really, he's just talking through his hat, trying to increase the pressure on Iran as it becomes clear that Iran isn't going to fold up on their nuclear enrichment program, and that the Iranian suggestion that they might dilute their existing enriched uranium as a means to keep it in return for a complete lifting of sanctions, that's not something that's going to meet the American requirement. So, in reply to a request for a summary and a bit of a scenario, Bibi Netanyahu is on his way to Washington. He's figured out that he doesn't get any traction with Steve Witkoff or Jared Kushner in the region. And he's going to go and talk to the manager. He's going to go and talk to their boss in Washington. And in preparation to go to Washington, Netanyahu got his military staffs to start developing plans for another invasion of Gaza. That is, he is going to say to President Trump, if Hamas aren't going to disarm, as clearly they are not, then Israel is going to go in and carry on destroying Hamas in detail, and he's going to rob Donald Trump and Trump's new Board of Peace of the peace that they purport to have achieved in the region. So he's going to beg, but he's going to beg with a bit of a stick ready to hit Trump with if he doesn't get what he wants. What does Netanyahu want? Netanyahu wants somebody to disarm Hamas in the Gaza Strip, but he also wants somebody to force the Iranians to agree to give up their ballistic missile development program, maybe destroy some of their ballistic missiles in situ, maybe sell a lot of them to the Russians so that the Iranians have fewer, don't know. And also, Netanyahu has suggested that Trump ought to force the Iranians to stop sponsoring Hezbollah and the Houthis in the region. And it's clear that Trump is not interested in anything other than a nuclear deal. Trump is interested in a nuclear deal that he will agree, that he will say is better than Obama's nuclear deal, which Trump has been deriding since he first came to office in 2016, immediately after Obama agreed that nuclear deal. And of course, although many have said that the JCPOA, the Obama-era nuclear deal, was being evaded by the Iranians, that is basically what Trump is going to get out of the Iranians now. We know that today, Ali Larijani, the Secretary of the Supreme National Security Council in Tehran, is not in Tehran. He was in Oman today briefing the Omani government, and he is in Qatar tomorrow briefing the Qatari government to tell the Americans what the Iranian starting position is for the next set of negotiations. And you'll notice that Larijani, an immensely competent and experienced senior official, he is telling the Omanis and the Qataris, and this is, I think, why we saw the venue for this set of negotiations move from Turkey to Muscat, to Oman, because the Iranians want to have a narrow but solid line of communications to the Americans between negotiating sessions. And clearly the Iranians value the Omanis and the Qataris for this purpose. All right, so Trump is going to agree a deal with the Iranians on nuclear stuff, on the nuclear weapons development program that the Iranians will cease. And he will ignore ballistic missiles, and he will ignore Iran's proxies in the region. Trump will call this a great victory. He will call this peace. And Trump will, of course, point out that this is additional justification for the Nobel Peace Prize that he feels he deserves. Netanyahu, as I say, is going to Washington with the plan ready to start a hot war up again in Gaza. Hasn't really gone anywhere. All we've had is a ceasefire, with phase 1 maybe sort of complete, phase 2 not embarked on yet, because of course Hamas is not going to disarm. So Netanyahu is going to threaten to start fighting in Gaza again. And Netanyahu has also permitted his extremist cabinet colleagues to announce a plan and pass it through Israeli war cabinet for increasing Israeli control of the West Bank, starting to roll back the Oslo Accords. And one reason to do this is because Netanyahu's extremist wing really wants to roll back the Oslo Accords and impose direct Israeli rule on all of the West Bank again, including Area A. That is the big cities with a lot of Palestinian population that the Israelis don't want to be in control of. But also this is designed to provoke civil unrest in the West Bank, perhaps in Gaza, so that the Israelis can respond in force, and so that Israeli voters go towards the upcoming Israeli elections, which must be held no later than October, with that feeling of insecurity that Netanyahu knows makes people vote for him. So Netanyahu is allowing difficulty to brew up in the West Bank, and he is creating difficulty in the West Bank calculated to create more opposition and people he hopes will rally around him. Why does Netanyahu need people to rally around him? Well, he needs to win an election between now and October. He needs to win it in order to stay out of jail, to keep his parliamentary privilege. And there are documents starting to come out in Israel which show the extent to which Netanyahu did not take appropriate action to deal with the threat from Hamas that turned into the attacks of October the 7th. This is not to say that Netanyahu deliberately allowed those attacks to happen. Netanyahu clearly didn't think anything was going to happen on the Gaza-Israel border, but that for years he built that picture in his mind and in the minds of others because it was convenient for him. As it becomes clearer and clearer that Netanyahu really was the man in charge for years before October 7th, he is the man who did not take appropriate means to protect Israel against the attacks of October 7th, 2023, Netanyahu will find it increasingly difficult to win this election. And that means Netanyahu no longer has parliamentary immunity. And that means Netanyahu might go to jail. So, the Iranians will walk away with a negotiated freeze on their nuclear program, if all goes according to their plans, and they will blame that on the great Satan and the little Satan. And nobody is going to make them democratize. Nobody's going to make them stop producing and deploying ballistic missiles and selling them to the Russians. And nobody is going to stop them running the Houthis and Hezbollah as their proxy militias. Trump will walk away with the biggest peace deal ever. And if there is fighting in Gaza, or for that matter, the West Bank, it's Netanyahu's problem, not Trump's. And that will save Trump from everyone in the world seeing the uselessness of the Board of Peace, of its subcommittees, of its board of technocrats, which as a board has not been given adequate resources to achieve what they're meant to achieve in Gaza. And Netanyahu loses the election and goes to jail. So there's my assessment. There's a scenario. It's not a prediction. And let's see how things shape up over the following week. Thank you for joining.